This is about the players and the preparation. This isn't about my career, my 8 years in New England. This is about the Titans and our preparation to go up there and face a team that's won 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years. They're 8-0 at home in that span. Got the #1 defense, got the best coach, got the best quarterback. So it's quite a challenge.
Mike Vrabel, coach of the Tennessee Titans, on what is coming on Saturday night as the Titans go to New England. And there is this sense, Chris, that Mike Vrabel's inside information will help that preparation. But preparation only matters so much. When it's single elimination time, there are some teams that thrive on that and some teams that don't. We're going to find out what kind of a team the Titans are going to be because this is their opportunity. This is it. Are they going to be a team that wins in January under Mike Vrabel, or are they going to be the latest victim of the Terminator? And you can tell by Vrabel's attitude there.
Yeah.
He buys into my theory. The Terminator's never dead.
Of course
and
not.
And the worst thing you can do is assume the Terminator is dead when he's not, and that is the Patriots.
Well, he understands the DNA and which makes the Patriots and how special they are, and that they're special with their breakdowns. And, in these playoff game scenarios, one, not only have they shown the ability to think outside the box and do different game plans and things like that. 2, that win-or-go-home attitude that we just talked about in the TV opening, right, Mike? I mean, that's when teams take chances. New England's been one of those teams that takes more chances than anybody out there. But having said that, I mean, who's the better team? Who's the better team? That's where this is interesting. I mean, when you really go through it, you just start to go, man, the Titans are better than the Patriots in a lot of areas. They are. I mean, okay, running back, running game. We're taking the Titans. Quarterback right now. Who are you taking? I know it's playoffs. And go ahead. It's good. This is a good. I want to have this convo.
Ryan Tannehill.
Yes.
Now, he only started 10 games.
Right.
But he led the league in passer rating. And look, I understand that some people don't like passer rating, and I think maybe people don't like it because it's not 0 to 100, but it's been the standard for evaluating passing performance based on yards per attempt, completion percentage, touchdown pass percentage, pass interception percentage for years, for decades.
Right.
That's the NFL standard. And Ryan Tannehill had the 4th highest of all time for the season this year, behind only Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers in 2011, Nick Foles in 2013. There's Ryan Tannehill at 117.5. And Tom Brady was at the bottom of the pack this year in passer rating. So the better quarterback in the regular season was Ryan Tannehill, period.
Right. So I'm just going through it here because, I mean, like you said, and I'm with you, Mike, the Patriots are the Terminator. They, you can never count them out. They're a different, I mean, they're special. They're on like their own pedestal in the NFL. But you start to break that down, and then you go to the offensive line. Well, you go, well, the Titans' offensive line is better. You go receivers. You go, well, Titans' receivers are better. You get on the defensive side of the ball, and, of course, the Patriots' secondary is better. But is it, that much greater than the Tennessee Titans? Is it that much greater to where New England's offense can take advantage against it? So when you just go on paper, guys on the field, from that standpoint, you sit there and go, the Tennessee Titans can definitely beat the New England Patriots. Now, going up to New England and doing it is a whole different thing. And I give them a little bit more of advantage because of like what you said a minute ago. Mike Vrabel knows some of the tricks of the trades, of the things New England might like to do in these situations. When they want to throw a screen pass, when they want to bring all-out blitz. He'll know certain little, telltales that he knows from his years there to go, and Dean Pease along with that to go, ooh, I know Belichick and McDaniels like to do this during this little game plan specific area, whatever it may be. 3rd and long, they like to do this. 2nd and 10, they do this. There's going to be little things like that and nuances that they'll be all over too. And I think that's why we've seen New England and them struggle against some ex-Belichick coaches.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely. I think that Mike Vrabel's knowledge of the way Patriots do things is an advantage, but how you use it and whether or not Bill Belichick counters that. And we've seen Belichick struggle against some of his former assistants, Vrabel was never an assistant there, but he was there long enough to know how things are and how things work. 17 postseason games played with Bill Belichick and the Patriots. He surely gleaned something about preparation, about decision-making, about tendencies, if Bill Belichick has any. But I think the key is going to be this, and I think back Chris, to 10 years ago when the Ravens went into Foxborough in the wild card round and trounced the Patriots. The key is you've got to kill them early. You've got to get, especially this edition of the Patriots, because they are not built to come from 14, 17, 21, nothing.
100%.
And that's exactly what the Ravens did 10 years ago when the Patriots were built to come back. They still were in such a hole they couldn't get out of it. If you get that 2-score, 3-score lead over the Patriots within the first half of the game, then you have a much better chance to beat them and finally kill the Terminator.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And you're right. It's not easy to do, certainly. And the Patriots defense is still special with what, Steve Belichick and, of course, Father Bill have done this year, and the creativity of the things they do on the defensive front and secondary and all of that. Yeah, I mean, they deserve a lot of credit, and that's going to be a pain in the butt from the Tennessee Titans. But they have this great run game in Tennessee right now. And Derrick Henry, I mean, we could sit here. What you could talk about with Tennessee, what is also interesting is you could argue they got the hottest running back in football. They got the hottest combination between quarterback and wide receiver in football right now between Tannehill and A.J. Brown. And, we've talked, you and I, about lack of big people in New England this year on the defensive side. I do think about, like, Ray Rice running up the middle of that first play in 2009 like you're talking about. I would not be shocked if we see Derrick Henry having his way here. The Titans can schematically put the Patriots into a bind. And I think that's what's interesting. And but doing that up in New England and outperforming and out-executing is a whole different question.
And I wonder whether or not we're going to see Mike Vrabel empty the tank early with some trick plays, with some unconventional things aimed at basically going all in and trying to build that lead? Or do you just rely? Do you go to your guys and say, we're the better team here, we're going to go execute, we're going to do it systematically, and we're good enough that when we get to the closing moments of the fourth quarter, it's going to be obvious that we win the game? I mean, is he going to feel that urgency, that desperation to try to engineer a big lead early, or does he just hope and believe that his guys are good enough to build and hold a lead? I think that's really the challenge for him as a coach, because I think if he tries to get into that back and forth and gradual process, you leave the door open for the Patriots, and then Tom Brady's going to morph into postseason Tommy, and it doesn't matter that he was near the back of the pack during the regular season. He's going to kill you in single elimination football. Or do you go all in with some risky maneuvers early on to try to deliver that death blow so you can't get killed by the Terminator in the fourth quarter? I think that from a strategic standpoint for Vrabel, that's a tough call, and I could see it go either way.
Well, yeah, because you could sit here and, like we were just talking about, I'm sure Tennessee can look at it and go, we're the better team, I think. We're the better team. We can beat these guys. Do we need tricks? Do we need to do something crazy? That's the argument they're going to be kind of in with themselves. I guarantee you the New England Patriots are going to have some trick plays this week. I can guarantee that. For whether it's either like, oh, gosh, we're struggling on offense, we need to jumpstart ourselves, do something like that. I mean, that's what we've seen in the past from New England when they feel like, ooh, we're a little behind the 8 ball and this team's outplaying us, like that 2014 Ravens game. I always think about that. But I think, like, to your point, like, build and hold a lead. With this Titans pass defense, it's not great, right, Mike? I mean, we've seen people have success on them all year, and that would scare me. That would scare me. You're right. Like, Brady in the pass offense not as good as years past, but against this pass defense, if they're down 10 points, they can come back. So I hope Vrabel does have some tricks, some trick plays, whatever it may be, to either, put their foot on their throat and end it, or at least have something there to jumpstart them in case things are stalling out on the offensive side of the ball.
And this is not going to be an easy road for the Patriots. They win this game, they go to Kansas City next week, where they barely escaped last year with the AFC Championship. And then unless there's an upset, they're going to have to go to Baltimore, where they lost by 17 points on a Sunday night earlier this year. And for other teams, for teams that aren't as mentally tough and resilient, I'd say there's a chance they lose this weekend simply because they know the road is going to be too difficult, but because it's the Patriots, because it's Bill Belichick, because it's Tom Brady, because there's this sense that maybe it is all coming to an end, and eventually it will come to an end, and there's been this looming sense the last few years that it is. If this really is the last year for Tom Brady with the New England Patriots, whether he retires or goes somewhere else, I just feel like that's all the more reason for them to muster everything. I'd be scared to death. If I was a Titans fan, I'd be scared to death about this game because it's a game you should win. But it's the Patriots, and we've seen it time and again. And I don't know how you get those 53 players and the coaching staff to ignore that because it is a very real factor. It's never going to show up on film.
No.
It's never going to show up in the playbook. It's never going to show up in the stat sheet. But it's a very real dynamic to walk into that situation knowing that you are going against one of the most accomplished teams in the history of sport when it comes to thriving in this kind of do-or-die setting.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's very real, and you feel it when you're there. Just, in my own experience as a player, it is, you feel it when you walk in the stadium, and it's only intensified since they've, won, 6 of these damn things now. So there is a mystique there, but they got perfect people to drive home the right points with Vrabel and Dean Pease. For one, to just say, hey, listen, to like what you're saying, they're the New England Patriots. They're going to, if we're up by 10, they're going to come back. Or they're never going to die. This is going to be a 4-quarter fight. They're the ultimate 4-quarter organization that we've ever seen in the history of the NFL. So he's going to have to beat that home, but also tell them, don't be afraid of we can beat this team. Like to almost, not make them this mythical creature. Yep. To a degree. I think he's got to do a good job of going, okay, yeah, it's New England. I see the logo on the helmet, but this guy's out here, these receivers, we can cover them. These D linemen, our O linemen can block them. They're not like, they're not Terminators. We can stop them. And I think that's what he has to beat in their brain a little bit.
And it's a tough balance because I'm sitting here envisioning Mike Vrabel in team meetings all week long showing film of screw-ups, mistakes, blunders by the Patriots all year long that would cause the guys to not be in awe of them. But at the same time, you can't let your guard down, right? That's the balance.
Yes.
They're just men, but they're not.
Yeah,
and it's right.
But they're special men.
It would drive me crazy.
No,
they're just men, but pay no attention to what happened when those men did that great thing there. But look at what they did that's bad. But you still want to respect them, but you don't want to be scared of that. If anybody can do it, it's Vrabel.
Right.
But we're going to be making our picks later this morning, the joint PFT PM Chris Simms Unbuttoned Mega Picks podcast for each of the wildcard games. And I've been going back and forth on this one all week. So
it's
I still have more time to go back and forth. Let's take a break.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.